Alrighty, welcome to another one of Skwatter's Ramblings. Here we have ExiIe, another TurboGrafx CD game that was at least localized by Working Designs. Now, I've played a lot of Working Designs games on this channel, and I have throughout my gaming life, honestly, at least in my later teens. Uh, I throughout my time, I've always said that Working Designs games were some of the best, right? Uh, I guess I say that because, well, I used a lot of cheats while playing them, as you can see from my videos, and I used cheats while playing them before. And that's not going to change. Believe me, that is not going to change. Not at all with Working Designs games. That is not going to change. That is always going to be a constant of these videos if I'm going to play a Working Designs game. That's not going to change. And to be honest, I can see why I use cheats, and I hope you can see why I use cheats as well. Uh, I use cheats playing Lunar the Silver Star. I use cheats playing Lunar Eternal Blue. I use cheats playing Cosmic Fantasy 2. I use cheats playing uh, ExiIe, and there was another one that I played. What was it? Magic Knight Rayearth. I used cheats on that too. Two different forms of cheats actually, and you know what? I wouldn't have been able to get through any of those games if it weren't for those cheats. Because to tell you the truth, I know I've probably said this before. I was actually able to beat uh, Lunar the Silver Star on the Sega CD, the Working Designs release. I was actually able to beat that. Without using cheats, I was able to beat that on the Sega CD console itself. And I had a good time doing it. It wasn't terribly difficult, right? But, and you know what, like, I just always found these Working Designs games really, really hard. I honestly did. Again, as I said, I'm not a very good game player. I suck at action-oriented gameplay or platforming and shit like that, right? So again, to just save me a bunch of stress and a bunch of white in the knuckle anger, I just decide to play with cheats, honestly, because I think it gets me through the game the way I would want it to, at the pace I would want it to. And as I said, I always play the game for the story, not necessarily for the aggravating gameplay. So in the case of ExiIe, it's an interesting game. They say answering mysterious summons from the leader of the Knights Templar, a 12th century Muslim assassin finds himself thrown into a globe-trotting adventure through space and time to gather religious artifacts, stop an ancient evil, and backtrack as much as humanly possible. That all comes from the cutting room floor. I'm not going, I will cite all my sources here. I'm just going to tacitly cite, if I'm using that word properly, the cutting room floor here because, as I was saying, a lot of these games from Working Designs I find are very hard, and I've always found them very hard throughout my life. And now, this site here, the cutting room floor, or tcrf.net, go ahead and visit it. It's actually a really good site, and it's not just about Working Designs games either, but they go very in depth. They go very deep into the game. They are people who know what they're talking about. They talk about all of the localization changes and just whether they're cosmetic or game breaking, as is especially the case with the second game in this series, ExiIe: Wicked Phenomenon. I guess originally to be called ExiIe 2: The Revenge. Uh, that's a throwaway title, if anything. Told to you by Yuko, who makes a cameo appearance in this game, which is kind of weird because I know in Japan Telenet published the game, so maybe. Well, it would definitely have to be something that they put into the game. It's certainly not something that Renovation Game put into the game, but to me, I mean, this is all new to me, right? I wasn't sure, like, because I mean, a book's publisher, like if it was St. Martin's Press or something, I didn't think that they would make any changes or additions to the book or something, right? And I thought it would be the same case for a video game release, right? I just thought that publishers would. I just thought it was more of a of a royalty or something, just going through like an extra hoop to get the game released or something, just another company that can put their name on the artwork or something. But I guess they do a couple things at least. Well, Working Designs is listed as a publisher, and boy, did they do a lot of things to this game, honestly. So Again, I have not played the original Japanese version, and I really don't feel that I have to. Um, as per the game itself, again, it's got that working designs feel, although it's a very, very early feel of working designs. I'd have to say that the TurboGrafx CD is very, very simple in this regard. It's got a high color palette compared to systems like the Genesis or other systems at the time, but you can especially see it in the text boxes. I mean, you can barely get more than like 5 or 6 words onto a single screen, while the Genesis release can get a full sentence onto the screen without having to advance in the dialogue tree there. Um, so well, again, the TurboGrafx 16 is at its heart an 8-bit system, funnily, humorously enough. But so, I mean, it's an interesting game. I like the cutscenes, absolutely, I do. They are, well, again, it's a CD-ROM format, and I think they only have 1 megabit memory, so that's an eighth of a megabyte, honestly. I'm surprised that they were capable of doing what they were able to with the cutscenes. It was an entertaining game, I would say. I was glad that it was over, honestly. I did not really appreciate how hard a lot of the bosses were, even with the cheats and everything. To be honest, on the last boss, as you'll see in this quickly sped up gameplay that I'm recording this diatribe over, uh, drinking some thought juice, sorry. I thought that one of my cheats had maybe messed up the game's code and I was fighting an unbeatable boss, but turns out I just had to keep on working at it, and you know, Bob's your uncle, right? But yeah, no. So uh, it has some of working designs voice talent, like Blake Dorsey. I think Blake Dorsey does Hugh DePayne, or Hugh DePayne as he's known in this game. They had to change a lot of the names, as is at least very well known for this game because of all the Islamic and Christian references and everything. People did that back in the day. Censorship, Democrats and everything, right? But so yeah, I mean, as I said, this game is at least partially rooted in history. I've been just slightly looking up things about like who could this guy be? Because as I was discussing this to my dad, he said offhand that he thought, oh yeah, there was a Muslim assassin who had allied himself with the Christian Crusaders, and I've been trying to find out more information on that, but I haven't been able to necessarily find any names. But it seems that, yes, medieval news. Okay, it says the Fatimid kingdom of Egypt did attempt to ally with the Crusaders. This coming from medievalnews.blogspot.ca. So I'm not sure if that's probably a large group of people there, not any singular person. But again, it's all extrapolation, right? Interpreting. But and of course, it is a fantasy game at its heart. So I won't dwell too much on that. But so yeah, I mean, it has certain role playing aspects to it. They're very small in compared to a lot of the platforming there. I mean, basically, shops or cities that you go to, they only serve to somewhat advance the plot, get a few better quality items to equip yourself with, swords, shields, uh, armor, which qualifies as, I guess, cotton turban and cotton clothes and stuff like that. But uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. As I said, they have, you know, a lot of colors and everything. They have a high color palette, 512 colors on screen per screen, I should say. But I don't know. It's really simplistic, and you compare a lot of the screenshots to different ports of this game, and they just don't look a whole lot different. I mean, maybe differences in the artwork and stuff like that, but to be honest, I don't know. The game was kind of blah with the graphics. I mean, every town kind of looked the same. I mean, you were in different cultures and everything, so you had Asian-looking houses, or medieval European-looking houses, or you had Middle Eastern-looking houses, and it's kind of funny. how they had to change a lot of the names of the places in this game as well. Like I've heard that El In is Jerusalem. Uh, that's had a name change among other places, but so I just kind of found it confusing. I just didn't really know where I was in the world at any one time, and the fact that when you meet Hugh DePayne, I'll just call him the game's name, Hugh DePayne in his castle in Elien, and he says, "Oh, Rumi's dead, and so is Joffrey," and you know. Sadler just kind of offhand says, "Oh my God, that's so terrible. You saved your own skin and everything, right?" Joffrey's on the screen right now, as you can see. But so I mean that was kind of confusing to me because I had no idea that I had traveled back in time by going through that door. Um, it turns out that we had gone back to like the 6th century or something. So like what is it, like almost, well, if this is the 12th century, that'd be the 1100s, but like 600, 700 years. But so I'm just looking at this and I think it kind of the story evolves in a kind of breakneck pace, if you ask me. And to be honest, a lot of the bad guys, the baddies that you encounter throughout the game, they're creatively drawn and everything. They're imaginative, interesting to look at, I guess. But again, a lot of the time you're just fighting crows or spiders, as you can see right now, right? I guess this is the Garuda you're fighting right now, or I should say I am. Um, yeah, so I don't know what to say about this game, honestly. It's it's one of Working Design's kind of left field choices and everything. It's, as I said, it's got great voice acting, but I don't know. The story seems kind of loose, right? You're always after this thing called the Holy Max, right? And at the end of the game, he says, uh, I'm not even sure if the Holy Max really existed, right? Because, and this wasn't always uh, obvious to me, if I could say that, that Hugh DePayne was always throughout the entire game under the influence of this Shimbatha character, uh, and because it didn't really make sense to me because I originally thought that in the opening cutscene when Hugh DePayne is lamenting his sorrows and and dislikes about the Clispin Crusaders, not the Christian Crusaders, the Clispin Crusaders, mind you, how they've become nothing more than thugs and bullshit like that. And then I think, okay, so he's got the kind of I don't know what to say, some kind of an Italian pseudo-European accent, um, and and then he seems to come into contact with some kind of force of nature, some kind of ethereal entity that speaks in a deep, low, rumbling voice. And I thought that was Satan, to be honest, when I first played this game. And I guess because I've played through this game and beaten it before, but I forgot a lot of stuff because it was several years ago. But okay, so there's Rumi and everything, and they're all being buried in that temple and everything. But so I'll get back to that later. But so where was I now? Oh geez, I completely lost my train of thought just looking there. But so yeah, I was not sure that Hugh DePayne was always under the influence of this character, right? So, and I thought that there would be a point in the game where, unbeknownst to Sadler, the main character, the Muslim assassin that you play as, uh, he would get uh, possessed by this spiritual form. And Shimbatha, to me, honestly, again, I played the entire game. I read all of the dialogue. I purposely went through and talked to everybody several times, and I still can't tell you who Shimbatha is, what he is. Again, I just don't know, right? I mean, I've never heard the name Shimbatha before. Yug or whatever that creature is reveals himself at the bottom of Pythagoras' lake, right? Shaped like a triangle, of course, because he's Pythagoras, right? The Pythagorean theorem. But so but again, yeah, that was a point of contention for me because I just was not sure what was going on, like what the character's motives were, and like why he was acting the way he was, and why he was normal for certain periods of time, and why he just decided to go crazy at one point, right? So, like to me, it's like, was Yug in control of himself before um, the what was it? The mandalas were were activated. It's like, was he in control of himself or something? Like again, I'm just not sure, right? So yeah, that was kind of confusing to me. It just seemed to happen all of a sudden, right? And again, as I can tell you, I haven't heard that name before, Shimbatha, right? So and in this game, you have several party members, which, to be honest, is kind of useless, right? I mean, a whole lot of people have said that. I guess anybody who's ever reviewed this game. I mean, all of the action sequences, you're Sadler, you're alone. You may see these people at least in some form or another in these action sequences, but they're only a means to an end, to be honest. And I mean, it's like at the beginning, you're looking for all your party members and everything, so you find Rumi at the beginning. That's all great and good. Then you talk to this guy who claims that he saw some weird dude in the desert walking towards the oasis to, start the spark in the powder keg to start the game. But then after that, you need to find Fakil and you need to find Kindi, and Fakil's face is curiously hidden in this game. The only, or maybe not in the Genesis version as well, but the several of the games have Fakil's face uncovered, and he's kind of got like a white mustache and a beard. He's an older dude, but I don't know. I guess they thought it would be more mysterious to have his face covered. Uh, and I mean, like he's supposed to be like a wizard, and of course I have played the second game, so I know a lot more about these characters. But and then Kindy's supposed to be this big, strong guy, and they say, "Oh, Kindy, lend us your brute strength." And you know what? Like, while you always play as Sadler, and you never play as anybody else, nobody's abilities or skills ever come into play throughout the entire game. Like, not even in a cutscene, not even like just in dialogue throughout all of the towns. Like, I mean, they say, "Oh, Kindy's super strong. Oh, Fakil's a great magician." And Rumi, again, from playing the second game, she's quick with a knife and she's a thief and everything. This never comes into play. It's never explored. It's never described or anything. They're little characters. They're little 8-bit blocky little sprites that rhythmically walk behind you in mathematical algorithmic fashion. So I mean, again, it's the first in its series, a very, very, very short series out of two. Oh no, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's part of the XZR series. Yeah, I looked that up a while back. Yeah, so there's XZR, and then there's XZR2, and then there's Exile, which I think is either a sequel to XZR2 or maybe a remake of XZR2. And then there's Exile Wicked Phenomenon. So all in all, there's 4 games in the series. So not the smallest, but not the largest. So I have looked up that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, thinking about it this way, this is the 3rd release in the series. They certainly should have updated it and advanced it and refined it to include a lot of these plot points, include a lot of these abilities, these ways to play the game and everything. Because again, like your characters, your little NPCs, literal NPCs, non-player characters, they're entirely useless and they don't speak at all during the game. They speak a few lines during the cutscenes at least, but they're entirely useless, and they leave you very early on in the game, making uh, their presence in the game entirely senseless. Honestly, it just doesn't make any sense to me, right? So and again, just looking at this cutscene that's playing right now, you're in the uh, Dionysus's town, if I'm pronouncing that right. He's the Roman name is Bacchus, Greek name is Dionysus. I think I'm probably mispronouncing that name, but I'll just call him Bacchus because it's sort of like Bacchus or something in this game. I mean, they had to change the name of the Roman god too. Really? Who's going to get offended by that? There are no ancient Romans anymore, right? So, there are a bunch of naked people around. They're having a great time, getting drunk and everything. Sort of like the Feast of Saturnalia, right? Now, this is probably not the same area where Pythagoras is. He's got his own little area where everybody. Oh, there's Pythagoras right there. Um, so yeah, he's got his own little area with a triangular shaped lake where Hugh DePayne makes his sudden and very jarring revelation that he's the main bad guy of the game. Again, I don't know. It's like Working Designs does not make these games themselves, but I would have to say a lot of the games that Working Designs ports over or localizes and brings over to North America or into the English-speaking world, I would have to say a lot of the games they make have main adversaries that are not active enough in the plot of the game to have any real significance, right? They just seem to come out of nowhere, right? I mean, Zophar was sort of a different story, right? Because he pretty much comes out at the beginning of the game. But again, I wasn't expecting Shimbatha. Like, I knew that from playing the game before that Hugh DePayne was somehow the bad guy or something. He was somehow possessed, but I mean, it's like that never comes up in the game until very, very late in the game, to be honest. And his name is never mentioned before. I may be wrong. You can watch through my playthrough, and maybe I forgot something, but like I just can't remember this guy ever being described in any real detail to make him have the certain weight that a character such as his would need to play that big of a part in the story. So, I mean, yeah, that just kind of got to me, right? Because again, I play it for the story, right? And me, having glossy-eyed, or rosy-eyed views of these games, these Working Designs games, and everything. And I guess I'm comparing every single game to Lunar and Lunar's Silver Star Story and Lunar Eternal Blue Complete. I've played both the Sega CD versions of those games and both the PlayStation versions of those games, and I would have to say they're some of the despite their difficulty, they're some of the greatest games I've ever played. They're on my top 5, as I said. I'm not ashamed to admit that. But again, it's like, and as I said, this is a very early Working Designs translation effort. But I mean, it's like they were a fledgling company back in the early 1990s, and this is what got them money. They chose to do this, they invested in this, and this is what got them money. Because I suppose from the other games they released on this console, they got money from it, and it was a success for them, at least in a small part. So I mean, yeah, and then it seemed that Exile Wicked Phenomenon was made entirely for the Turbo Duo itself by a different developer. This first one was Renovation Game, probably why the mosque in Assisi says, "Oh, we're closed for renovation," right? Right. Um, so I don't know why it was changed to Riot or Riot. Sorry. So I don't know. Yeah, if they seem to use the same intellectual property and development engine. Same with the game engine and everything. I just remember. Sorry. Getting ready to play this game, it'd be so awesome. And I'd say, oh yeah, get ready for super CD graphics, just as was advertised by Yuko and everything, because that was a great series and everything, right? You remember Valis? Yeah, that was a great few games. Yeah, love the voice acting. But no, you're looking at it, you're thinking, my God, this is no different from the original game. You have twice the megabit power, 2 megabit CD-ROM, super CD-ROM technology, and all of the overworld graphics look exactly the same. I mean, there are a few refinements the to the action sequences, but it's just all the same and everything, right? So it's just really repetitive, honestly. And believe me, I said that this game was really hard because I had tried to play it before on the TurboGrafx CD without cheats, and I got my ass kicked. So I gotta tell you, as many other people know who have played the game before, maybe some people have beaten it, maybe some of them haven't, but well, most of them haven't, definitely. The vast majority of them haven't, but yeah, that game is disgustingly hard. and I will use every single cheat that I have at my disposal to try and make the game easier for me. And I will have no shame in doing it. Because that is insane, right? I mean, the cutting room floor says that this game had its difficulty increased, as was very common throughout Working Designs releases, to at least a somewhat sane level. Not so with ExiIe Wicked Phenomenon. It is insane. Sometimes the enemy stats go up as much as 3,400%, which is atrocious. So we're getting near the end of the game here. We're fighting this Shimbotha character, this guy that comes out of nowhere. He's hovering around looking like a gross little zombie skull-headed guy carrying the body of Yug around with him. And of course, you know, I looked up a walkthrough as I was fighting this guy, and I said, okay, let's try using magic for the first time in the game. And you rape Yug Depain with your sword, and he dies. And throughout the game, they were saying that your friends are dead. Or at least Rumi is, and you can't find Fakil and Kindi. So again, I don't know what the significance is of the final cutscene. He has his friends standing off in the distance, though not the too far off distance, and he starts walking towards them. To me, and you know, he has this kind of this little monologue about, you know, how there's no absolute power that can grant humanity happiness and everything. And then I just think, you know, it would have been better if they had the cutscene played back practically in reverse. He walks towards his friends and they fade away. Maybe that would probably make more sense if they were dead. But that's not so, because curiously enough, in the next game, they're all okay. Woohoo! Isn't that great? All right, so ExiIe. Neat game. Not too good, not too bad. I don't regret playing it. Gave me something to do with my time. Well, at least it's over, and I don't have to play it anymore because I have my playthrough videos. Woo! Alright, so next game I'll have to play is, of course, ExiIe Wicked Phenomenon. What else would it be? I'm locked into this. Oh well, so whoever watches this, thanks for watching me. You very few people who patronize my channel, and I'll see you next time. Already, Skwatter out.